Dear woke Christian, not to change the subject at all, but did you see the Olympic opening? I've seen clips of it. I'm not a big fan of the Olympics. I remember, of course, when the Olympics were about the celebration of, man's achievement, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't watched the Olympics since probably and been like really involved in it, probably since the Olympics were here in Atlanta. Okay. And so every year there's just so much foolishness around it. And in my opinion, and you know what else really ruined it for me? I watched a documentary of cities that have hosted the Olympics and how they all have what happened after the fact. And it was really telling, like, man, having the Olympics is not a blessing. Now, granted, I think Atlanta is an outlier, but there are many cities in what will basically be almost third world countries that have hosted the Olympics, and it has been a blight on them. So I've never really been that excited about the Olympics. If something's on, I'll poke my head in, but I'm not a big TV watcher like that. That being the case, I did see what was considered the opening ceremony. There has to be a point where people stop saying like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that pagans are paganing. Oh my gosh, pagans are paganing. I can't believe it. Stop clutching our pearls. This is what they do. This is what unbelievers in Christ do. So are we supposed to be surprised and shocked? No, this is what they do. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not one of those advocates that say everybody should protest something and get out like that. But maybe we should stop supporting this stuff. Just maybe. Do your own genuflecting, do your own consideration. Maybe we should stop supporting these things because they don't. There's no way you're going to make me believe that what they did yesterday or whenever that was at the opening ceremonies, that was just like happenstance, that it was that perverted, that it was that wicked. I'm sorry. I think we should stop making excuses for it and just call evil evil and stop participating in it. We don't have to go live in a hovel, but you don't have to watch it either. And too many people, in my opinion, they don't have a good rationale for it. So they try to, oh, it was just a mistake. It just so happened. That wasn't really what they meant. Okay, whatever. Whatever. At this point, I'm just like, we're just saying this now. We're just trying to excuse bad behavior when in actuality, we should just excuse ourselves from it. Do some deep dives. This is very interesting. Do some deep dives into cities that have hosted the Olympics. It is really interesting. They're not, and I think the only saving grace is that Atlanta has a lot of colleges right here. Because we have the Olympic Stadium, Olympic Stadium became the Atlanta Braves Stadium for many, many years. And then Atlanta Braves moved to Cobb County. And but Georgia State University really wanted to up its athletic program. And it just so happened to work out, in my opinion, that they took over that stadium. And apparently they're doing really well. They're having a great time. And prayerfully, they'll continue to do great. But I don't think other cities have had those same testimonies. There's a lot of them abroad and such like that have not done well, especially Winter Olympics. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Yeah, do a deep dive into just you do YouTube search. I have to find it, but it was a really interesting documentary about cities that have hosted the Olympics. They don't do well, and because there's a lot of politicking that goes on even before you get to be the host city. So when they're gambling and bidding to become the host city, they got to pour a lot of money in just to become a runner up to become a host city. I'm sorry, to be considered to be a host city. So imagine if Jasonville is kind of broke already and I'm trying to host the Olympics. I'm robbing Peter and Paul and everybody else to try to build my infrastructure up so I can maybe be considered to be a host city, but I didn't be doing that money with some other things. And it is very wild. So yeah, I'm not a big supporter of the Olympics. And then lastly, I think in the day and age that we're in right now, I think the Olympics have outwore their welcome. It doesn't need to be something that goes on forever. I would be perfectly fine. Again, I'm not a supporter of it, so I don't watch it. I don't care. If they just said, you know what, no more Olympics, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Yeah, the paganism is more out in the open, but this is my only question though. It's always been like this. Now, granted, it's much more overt, but we can rewind back to the 80s. We were watching it during award shows back then. Why are we clutching our pearls now? We've seen it. Like, just stop participating. You don't have to watch it. Just stop. If people who profess to be Christian stop supporting these depraved actions, there would be a serious problem. I'm telling you. And I'll use my example. I've used it before. If y'all Christians stop supporting Disney, Disney would stop a lot of its foolishness, a lot of it. But again, I don't care about the House of Mouse. I want to be one of the second people there to cheer it on when they lock the gates. If y'all stop supporting them, they would rely. Now, granted, I'm sure they would still continue on. Not saying that they would close down indefinitely. But what I am saying is that y'all don't have to support them. We elevate entertainment almost to a place of veneration and worship. We must be entertained. So if you don't go to Disney, what are you going to do to be entertained? If you don't watch this movie, what are you going to do to be entertained? We don't have to, though. You don't have to. Just saying. DearWokesy@gmail.com. Rio de Janeiro. That was one I remember Jimmy Ward. It did not do well. They very rarely recover the expenses. I mean, there's a lot of money. I mean, just to get ready for the Olympics, just to be considered, you got to do so much in order to just get your city ready to be considered. Atlanta did. They ain't just fill out an application and say, hey, we want to be the whole city. I mean, they did a lot. I mean, they changed roads. They brought in they did a lot. And I will say, I think, again, Atlanta, if you looked at a diagram, I'm pretty sure Atlanta fared way better than Rio de Janeiro or other international cities that hosted the Olympics. I mean, I think we have a couple things in our favor, which was, again, the interstate system and the airport. I think those two things right there, and how close the airport is to where everything was going on during the Olympics back in '96. So I'm not going to lose any sleep if they decide, you know what, we're not going to do any more Olympics ever again. I think the point has been made. It's done, in my opinion. Was it China? I thought there was one that looked at like several cities. Now I got to look it up. But it's just normal operating procedure. I think if you're talking about the Olympics, I got you. I'm not mad that you have to spend that much money. It's just they never recoup it. It never comes back. So like a Rio de Janeiro or maybe a less affluent city that's trying to get the Olympics and they put all this money into it and they don't get picked, well, that money will never come back. They'll never recoup that cost that they put out to be selected as a host city. And I think now another thing is Atlanta, they spread out so many of those events. Those events were everywhere in the metro Atlanta area. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the equestrian events they weren't anywhere near Atlanta. Okay. They were so far out of pocket. The rowing was at Lake Lanier, which is not Atlanta. Okay. Just newsflash, it's not Atlanta. They spread those activities out all over the place. So they weren't just downtown. So I think that might have also helped because those things that are like, I think the horse park, if I have to look it up, the Atlanta Equestrian Park is something else now. And it was able to be reused is what I'm trying to say, is repurposed. Unlike some things that are just made, like especially for the Winter Olympics, they're making these big jumps and they're making these things that are specific for winter activities and they never actually get used again. Now, Paris has a huge expense to repair their railways and damage from the fires. Yeah, and that was the other thing. That's why I say like the Olympics that's something for the 2020s. It's done. Because now going in here, you're just putting people in in impossible harm's way just because of the games. I mean, whatever happened with the railway system, I mean, it just seems like the possibility of something going south because we can't pretend like we're safe out there like that. That's not true. So the idea and the notion of just doing this to do it, there's no real value in it. There's nothing that happens that benefits anybody else. Your city's going to probably suffer financially for many, many, many years afterwards, and you might have a terrorist attack as Centennial Olympic Park. Yeah, they had events all over Atlanta. And again, I think that might have been good. That could have been bad, however you want to parse it out. They spread those events all over. They spread that all over the place. I do think that allowed, and it wasn't a lot of thumb on the scale, if you will. So if you were a small business owner and there was a particular event in your area, I don't believe that they really impeded you from being a participant and being able to get some of that, some of that tourist money that comes in from that. So I think that was kind of cool, if I remember it correctly. But again, I don't think the Olympics are necessary. You'll never hear me complain. If you ever hear me say, look, I'm rushing to go watch the Olympics or something, trust me, that's probably a sign that I've been kidnapped. There was something in Birmingham. Absolutely. And if you know Birmingham, did you say Birmingham, Georgia? No, Birmingham, Alabama, 2 hours away. So that's not, now granted, it's a straight shot. It's an easy 2 hours. It's the easiest 2 hour drive you're ever going to do. But again, yeah, there you go. The equestrian events were out in Conyers. They spread them things all over Georgia. So, but April said that the tennis courts in Stone Mountain never got used after the Olympics. I thought they became a soccer field. Not trying to be funny. I think it's a semi-pro soccer field. I could be wrong. But I mean, again, the point is a lot of this stuff doesn't get reused. It doesn't get repurposed. But also the monies that are spent to build it and the infrastructure put in place to support it don't get reused, and you don't recoup that money. Good to see good people. Chicago did host the Winter Games. You're right. And people were surprised that there are no mountains in Chicago, and people had to go to the middle of Wisconsin. Sure did. Yeah, Brazil has a live sewer that runs just between buildings. And again, like, is the Olympics necessary? I don't think so. Oh, April said, never mind. She said, it's got weeds growing on it. Okay, never mind. I know you live out in those parts, so I trust you. So the opening ceremony does not get my attention at all. I don't care anything about the Olympics. Again, I think it's well over its shelf life. But I think that's one of the things. There are events that we do as Americans that we could stop doing. We don't need to do that. Why are we doing that? And I'm sorry, I think the Olympics have outworn their welcome. It's okay to say, yeah, the Olympics were good. We did those in the early 1900s, the 2000s. Yeah, but in 2020 we decided to stop. And the last one was 2024. Just let it go. It's okay. There's not one thing that's benefited from it, in my opinion. There's no reason for it. And in my opinion, you can't convince me that you're concerned about all of these quote unquote global issues. And in the midst of that, we're going to do Olympic Games series in a country that could really use that money in another direction. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not that interested in it. So yeah, if you ever hear me say I'm rushing to go watch the Olympics, is a true sign to send help. That's my help. I need somebody. I'm being kidnapped or whatever.
Hit that like for deal with Christian. Yo, for deal with Christian. Smash that bell for DWC. Yo, smash it. Just smash it. Hit that like for deal with Christian. For deal with Christian. Smash that bell for DWC. Yo, smash it. Just smash it. Hit that like for deal with Christian.